So the best move is to protect the square that pawn is going to turn into a queen on, this last row or rank called the 8th rank, right? So if we move our king there, mine is now protecting these 3 squares. That black king can't come to these 3 squares because that would be putting himself in check, and he's not allowed to do that. So now, all I got to do, what's the next step to the puzzle? All I got to do is march my pawn up there, and guess what? Check, right? And if you notice, this is the move. My pawn on D went to D8 and turned into a queen, and the plus sign means check, and that's what we're going to learn about notation. Okay, so if you know how to checkmate with the king and queen, the rest of the solution here of checkmate is less and less to the student, meaning, you know, you should already know how to checkmate with the king and queen. You solve this puzzle, okay? So that's the way a lot of the puzzles are set up. They're not necessarily set up for checkmate, but it's set up to gain material or position or take pieces or checkmate. So I do want to go back to the forum, and I posted, oh, this is a news item, and this is a forum post, pretty much the same thing, notation. So anybody that missed, or if you want to follow the lessons and not have to find them on the articles page or in the videos page, I put the links here, right here for you. So as part of your Blizzard bag homework today, and hopefully everybody else will do this by next week, because this is very, very important, is to learn how to write down your chess games, because the way you learn in chess is by making mistakes and learning which moves of yours were mistakes and how not to make them again. So it's kind of like life. You're always going to make mistakes. Some are big, some are small. The key is don't make the big mistakes, make the small mistakes, and any mistakes you do make, if you have a recording of it, you can go back and look to see how did you go wrong? Where was your wrong move? What mistake did you make? And how can you learn what's a better move or choice or decision to make so that you don't make that mistake again, right? So you can always, always, always play better. Even the best chess player in the world can get better. So as you know, the board has coordinates, right? Just like Battleship, right? We've got files and ranks. Ranks for rows with an R, just like rank and row. So we've got our first row or rank, second rank. And so each square, like the square with the star, is that square is called E4. And I think you've seen some of this in class, and on maybe if you've been on the website or other chess books, you've seen that before. But now we're going to learn how to record a game or record moves. We know what the board has coordinates, but what do we do with those coordinates? Well, first you need to learn what each piece's nickname is, okay? I think I might need to send some non-students to the rooms for a second and be quiet. Okay, we only have one child left in our online session here at the Peterson household. So you first need to learn the shortcut letter for each piece. And obviously you can see K is for king, Q is for queen, B is for bishop, capital B, because lowercase b refers to the B file on the chessboard, okay? Uppercase R is rook, N is knight, even though knight begins with K, the next letter is N because the K is already taken by the king, so we call the knight an N. And the pawn doesn't have a shortcut because there's so many of them. You'd be writing the word P a lot on your score sheet, and so you actually don't need the P. And we'll show you in a little bit here how is that possible. So if you notice, here's a board, and we've got our coordinates on it. They're a little hard to read. I like to have big coordinates on my chessboard. So the first step is E4. So if we click the play button, we'll see the pawn. You don't really need to say where it came from because we know how to set up the chessboard. But the pawn moved to E4. So we could have written P, capital P, E4. But we just leave off the P because if it doesn't have a letter, we know it's a pawn. If it had another letter, it'd be one of the other pieces. So we just say E4. That means the pawn moved E4. And then if you're black, now try playing the move NF6 for black. So here's a puzzle, and Colin or Susan or Charlie or Andrew or Nathan or Lauren or anybody else who wants to try to guess, what does this piece, what does that mean? What should I do if I'm black?
You want to say something? Knight to F6.
Knight to F6, that's right. Is it just knight? Well, where's F6? F6 is over here. Can this knight move F6 over here like this? No. He doesn't have a teleporter. It's this knight, right? The F6.
Yeah.
Hey, we solved the problem. Knight to F6. That's right. Now, when there's a capture, that's shown by an X between the pieces where it moves to. So, if after knight plays knight to F6, white plays D3, pushing the pawn in front of the queen one square, then black can take white's pawn. So, the next move for white is D3. And you can either click the play button down here, or you can click this button up here. Be careful about these controls. These will send you multiple steps ahead. This will send you to the end of the game. And it's not that complicated when it's real simple, but sometimes I just like to click through on the game log up here at the top, I call it. So D3, right? So white moved a pawn to D3. And then who answered that question before? I missed your name.
Lauren Gentleman.
Lauren! What does this mean? NX E4. What does that mean?
N. Over the N. Remember what the N means? Knight. Knight.
The knight. You can almost read it. Knight. What does the X stand
for?
What does the X stand for?
The other piece.
Capture. If you notice throughout the ChessKid website, they have these words that will link to the glossary. So if I look down at my status bar in my browser, I can see that this is going to show me the definition of what capture means in chess. And there's a whole glossary, a whole dictionary of chess words if you want to learn what they mean. So capture, that means the knight is going to take that pawn and eat them, take them off the board. So knight captures E4. Well, that pawn was on E4 and it's now gone, right? So that's how you capture. Good job, Lauren. And so how do we write the pawn capturing the knight? So let's see. E4, knight to F6. What if we just move, D3. Knight captures E4. What's this next move, Lauren?
Knight captures E4.
Well, the knight captures E4, but what's our third move? What's our third move? DX E4. What does that mean?
Let's see here.
Well, what does D refer to? What is the lowercase d? That's the D file, right?
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. So, what do you think DXE4 means?
File capture E4.
Well, that's close. It's the pawn on D. So, can you imagine if there was another pawn on F3? Either pawn could take this knight. So they write the file that the pawn is on. They could have written PD3XE4, but they shortened it to they just shortened it. The pawn on D takes E4. If you don't ever see a capital letter, that means it's a pawn. So pawn on D, on the D file, captures E4, whichever piece
Very
is there,
interesting.
right?
Very interesting.
Yeah. So is anybody? Oh, here's the reason why they do it is because you see, white could capture this pawn on E4 with either his D pawn or his F pawn. We like to call them Daisy and who's the F pawn? What's the F pawn's name? Safe. Yes, our pawns have names. Some people call them the A pawn, the B pawn, the C pawn, the D pawn, the E pawn, the F pawn, the G pawn, the H pawn. But we give them names. We call them Anna and Ben. That way, if they ever get split up, we call it a Ben-Anna split. But-um-bum. Ben-Anna split. So if Ben and Anna march down the field and one of them gets captured, what do we call it? A Ben-Anna split. All right. C, what's C, Maddie?
I love banana splits.
What's C? We have them labeled on our driveway that's covered with snow right now. So we got Anna, Ben, it's not Charlie, is it? Camlin. I think it's Camlin for Kenzie's best friend. We got D is Daisy. Candy. Oh, because Kenzie likes candy. D is Daisy. E is Emma for Maddie's best friend. F is Faith, Gary, and Henry. Right? All right. You can call them whatever you want, but I'd recommend if you can learn those names, give your pawns a name with the letter of the file it's on, then it becomes easier to remember. And that makes chess more fun. Okay? So that's the beginning of notation. Does anybody have any questions so far? All right, we're going to move on to part 2, and that involves castling. And you guys are all going to be one step ahead of everybody else because we haven't talked about castling yet, but you're going to learn it today. So the second part, say we have this position. Maddie wants to say something. Maddie, go ahead. Okay, you did just say something. You said the word something, so now you're done. All right,
Okay.
so let's say we want to, let's say you see knight to D7, ND7 for black. How do you know which knight went to D7? Because this knight on D8 and this knight on F6 could both move to the square D7. So when it's ambiguous, and you'll have to ask your mom or dad what that means, but when there's more than one, when you don't know which one it could be, we need to write an extra letter, okay? So we say, if we want the knight on the B file to move there, we write N. Normally we write ND7, but we got two knights that can move there. We need to tell them which one. So NB, knight on the B file, D7. So the knight on B goes to D7. Now we know which knight goes to D7. You'll only usually find that with knights and pawns, typically, because bishops, well, that can't ever happen with bishops because one bishop's on light squares and one bishop's on dark squares, and they can never be on the same square or go to the same square. So let's, obviously, if we wanted it to be the knight on the F, we would write, ooh, I'll do that. Oh, this is a pop quiz, so Lauren or Colin or Charlie or any else, if we wanted to move the other knight to that square, what should this say instead? Or Maddie, you can say it too, I guess, if you want to raise your hand. Does anybody have the answer? Because otherwise I'm going to call on Maddie.
Nathan does.
Who? Nathan? What is it?
I'm not sure he does.
Well, he can guess.
You want to guess? Look.
You don't lose points for guessing.
What would it say if you're trying to move the knight on
I'll give you a trophy for giving an answer, even if it's wrong.
What would be the notation? Like solution? Yes, well, kind of. What would it be? What was the first letter? Moving out. No, what would your first letter be for your knight? moving the knight. No, remember how we said something? 4. 4? No, N. Where's the letter? N.
Right. The Jeopardy music is going to come on soon.
N. N.
What is it?
Sorry, we're away from the speaker. I said N. N4.
N4?
Yep.
No. Good answer, though. Nice try.
You're still giving Nathan a trophy.
I need to give that trophy to who again?
Nathan.
Nathan. Remind me at the end of class. I will get off of here and get you a trophy for trying to answer. Well, if you look just below the puzzle here, it says. So, Maddie wanted to answer. Go ahead, Maddie. What is it?
NFD7.
Well, it's also on the screen, isn't it? It says NFD7. So instead of NB, instead of the knight on B, it would be the knight on F file. It would be the knight F, N, capital N, F, D7. That's right. So these trick. Oh, Nathan or Colin or Lauren or Maddie or Charlie or anybody else on. Let's say we wanted to move the knight on B to D7. Now what do? Now we got, what if we wrote knight N, B, D7? But both knights are on B. Now what do? Does anybody want to guess? Hold on, who raised their hand first? Colin? Nathan?
Yeah.
Nathan, what is it? I want to move this knight over to D7. What should I write?
I said it. Actually.
What is
I said it. You should just leave it there and move another piece.
That's a great one. That's a great one. That deserves a trophy, too. Kenzie, what is it?
Thank you. I know.
N8. It's hard to read. N8. It's N8 D7. Because it's the knight on the 8th rank. You see, they might be on the same file now, but now they're on different ranks. So the way to tell the difference between these two knights is by putting their rank after their name. So we got NB D7. Okay? I'm sorry. That won't work. Look, it says here, that won't work because it's N8 D7, right? And if we wanted the other knight, it would be, everybody say it together, N6 D7. That's right. That's right. All right. That can, trust me, that doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, it can get confusing. So just want you to be aware of that one. Here's something a little more common that you should do before move 10, and that is castling. We haven't really gone over how to set up the board necessarily, but you've probably seen them set up. But a few moves into the game, preferably before move number 10, you want to castle. And castling is very, very special because you can move two pieces in the same move. That's the only time you can do that in chess. And the king, that's right, the king moves 2 squares. What? Coach Matt, you said the king can only move 1 square in any direction. Now he can move 2 squares when he castles? Are you crazy? No, I'm not. So, castling, there's some very important rules to castling, but one of them is, well, there can't be any pieces between the king and the rook, okay? And there can't be, one of these squares can't be being attacked by white. And what else, Ken? That's right. If the king has already moved, he can't castle. And if this rook already moved, he can't castle with that rook. He could maybe castle with the other one. So we'll get into castling later, but the notation is 0-0, or actually I think it's O. O-O. Some computer programs can't handle both, but most of them do. It's either O-O or 0-0. So when I do that, whoa, what just happened there? That's called a kingside castle. The king castled with the rook on his side. And so the king moved 2 squares, and the rook magically went over to the other side. That's the only time the rook can hop through a piece or jump over a king, and it's a very special move. Okay? So don't try to castle with any other pieces. Okay? Now, you can also castle, and this is fun. I like doing this, especially when he castles first. I like to castle to my other side. Do you know why? Because then I can send these 3 pawns down there attacking it and call it a pawn storm. You guys want to learn what a pawn storm is later? Oh, it's fun. It's fun to bring your pawns down there and storm the castle of the Black King. Just watch it on TV, guys. All right. So castling on the queen side. This time I'm going to castle with the rook on the queen side of the board. White is, okay? And that, in the chess notation, is written 0-0-0. So when I do that, whoa, the king just moved 2 spaces and the rook moved 3. And now he's well protected in the castle. And castling is it's not always required in a chess game, but it's very highly recommended. You should always castle unless you know what you're doing. So, if we get a pawn down to the end of the, if we get pawn to E8, like we did in the previous puzzle, you write equals Q after it. And that means the pawn turns into a queen. He's promoted. He earned a promotion, and now he's a queen. You can also make him a rook, but typically you can make him a knight or a bishop. But typically you make him a queen because she is a very powerful piece. There are a few other symbols to write. Whenever you put the other king in check, you put a plus sign after it. And whenever you checkmate, it's either 2 pluses or the numbered sign after it. And if white wins, you write at the bottom of the score sheet 1-0. That means 1 got a point in his tournament. And if black won, it's 0-1. And if it's a draw, they each get half a point. So we don't really need to get into that too much. Sometimes you might see exclamation points like great move, or 2 exclamation points, excellent move, or a question mark like, ooh, that's a mistake, or 2 question marks, that's a big blunder. So you might see those, not common, but here's a score sheet of one of the chess champions and how you write them in the column. And parents, I have this on, although I don't think it uploaded very well. Let me go to we're all done with that lesson. Does anybody have any questions on chess notation?